Today's episode of Buy Black Podcast is brought to you by Mike D's Barbecue. If you want to add some flavor to your cookout this Labor Day, throw some D's on it. Visit buyblackpodcast.com/BBQ to order Mike's award-winning signature sauces and rubs. Use the promo code BUYBLACK to get free shipping and an exclusive gift just for the Buy Black Podcast community. Now let's start the show.
That's what's missing, that there's this big kind of push for acquisition, and you figure out, hey, well, if we get enough new customers, then eventually we'll be profitable. But you can't be profitable if you're losing money on every customer that you gain. So the goal with email marketing is to say, okay, now we have this person, they're in our funnel, and we want to keep them in that pipeline as long as possible. So what do? We're going to figure out, hey, what did they buy? What are some, other products that maybe we can upsell them or cross-sell them? How do we get them even more interested in these maybe new products? Are there product reviews that we can talk about? Is there some kind of content that can introduce them into how to use the product? So we try to use all these different avenues to make sure that we're taking this one-time, quote-unquote purchase, or you purchased your customer when you set your marketing budget aside and got them into the pipeline. And once you've paid for them once, now you can essentially market to them for free anytime you want because they're on your email list.
Buy Black Podcast, episode 52. Stop ignoring your customers. List building plus email marketing equals more revenue. With Thierry Augustin. Welcome to Buy Black, the voice of black business. The only podcast that provides free marketing for growing black companies, education for budding entrepreneurs, and a reliable place for consumers to find and spend money in quality black-owned businesses. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you learned something from this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating or review on iTunes. Ready? Let's get to work. Welcome back to Buy Black, the voice of black business, your only podcast dedicated to helping you find and connect with black-owned businesses. Today, we are bringing you a phenomenal interview with Mr. Thierry Augustin. Thierry reached out to me after having listened to the episode with Rohan Jilks, which you guys remember, episode 41. Rohan taught us how to start a $1 million online business. Well, Thierry has definitely got a $1 million idea and a $1 million business, and he is going to share with us one of the key components of being a digital entrepreneur in the 21st century, and that is all about email marketing. Thierry, thank you for reaching out, and thanks for being with me here today.
Gerald, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and share a lot with your listening audience.
Awesome. So Thierry is the owner of Stellar Emails, and as you guys know, we're going to jump straight into it. Thierry, just tell us a little bit about your background. Let's get started, and we'll figure out where we go on this journey as we talk.
Absolutely. So we'll peel all the way back. I actually started my journey in medical school. I had taken a year off just to kind of wrap my head around my future and see what I really wanted to pursue. I ended up taking some time working at an HIV/AIDS clinic, doing some traveling, doing some working. And when it came time to roll back into my program, I didn't really want to do it. So right around the end of that time, a friend of mine had come to me and wanted to start a blog. At this point, it was about 2012 or so, where, kind of fashion blogs were really taking off. This was the early kind of push for content and influencer marketing. So I got in at a pretty good time. We grew relatively quickly. I ended up becoming a content director for an independent men's magazine, and then transitioning into e-commerce at an early stage online fashion startup, which is where I really kind of cut my teeth in the online retail world. And one of the things that I found so fascinating during that time, this was a business that was already doing $5 million at the time. They ended up growing to 10 by the time I left. But what I found so fascinating is that they were able to leverage content so well. And one of the main ways they did that was through email marketing. They were always having conversations, digitally with people who were either interested in their clothing or had already purchased, and they always had this ongoing conversation. They were educating them with great blog posts. They were teaching them things, and we saw, and I got to see how real that reaction was, how people were so just kind of taken and consumed in that kind of content conversation. So I started to, dig around a little bit, and as I was networking and kind of growing in the field, I noticed that a lot of business owners weren't doing any email marketing, and if they were doing it pretty poorly. It was something that, they'd roll around and send an email maybe when it's, Black Friday, after, people who have purchased or maybe were interested in their brand had spent, pretty much the whole year not hearing a peep from them. And they really weren't taking advantage of email as more of a communication and relationship building tool, and instead we're trying to hope that they can squeeze some sales out of it, and that's totally the wrong way to do it, right? So when I started to notice that, I figured, let me take a step back. At that point, I'd already left that company, and I'd started doing some general consulting on the side on that retail end. And I was like, let me take a step back, let me niche down, and let me try to see if I can serve people, companies that are doing, okay, relatively well, but they're missing this key piece of their back end. And what happens really is that email marketing is just, something on most brands' to-do list, right? They know that it's important. They know that they want to get to it, but, with everything else that's on their plate, especially with certain brands that have small teams, they're just, it's just too much for them to figure out. So I figured I would come in and try to fill that gap, and that's how the idea for Stellar Emails was born.
Awesome. So you covered a lot of really important things right now. I wanna back up real quick to, let's start back at the Black Friday strategy, right? You were talking about companies will not appropriately use that email list, and they hit it after kind of being absent for a whole year because they just want to get some sales. That kind of made me think about the relationship part of that email marketing versus social media. We in this content world and in this kind of online world, we're told we have to build a social media following, and we have to have a real interaction with our followers on social media in order to build that relationship. Kind of what's the difference between doing that through email marketing versus social media marketing, and what makes one a better strategy than the other?
For me, I always think about the fact that you don't own the platform. I've seen brands struggle to adjust, to algorithms, whether, it's Facebook or, Instagram or Google, and just try to, figure something out to make sure that they're getting the same amount of reach, the same amount of engagement. And what happens is you have, on social media, you start to build a conversation, you end up having a lot of fans, but it really gets difficult to transition those people into actual customers, right? And we've seen, from the start of Facebook where, early on you could literally build your business off of it for free. But now, of course, it's taking a whole bunch of marketing dollars to really reach that same audience. And when I think about email marketing, it's a list that you own. These are people who have voluntarily, given you their information, and they've given you, the right really to contact them. They said, I want to hear from you. And, brands are doing themselves a disservice if they don't go ahead and reach out to the people who actually have confirmed that they are interested by their actions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, you take 10,000 followers versus 100 people who've said, I spent money with you and I want to hear more from you. Which one of those are you going to take?
Yeah, absolutely. And, a business is built on customers, and specifically on repeat customers. I think that's the one thing where, how, online marketing and e-commerce has kind of veered off a bit in the sense that they're so focused on customer acquisition and getting that person in the door that they forget to take care of them after, they've already made the purchase. So there's this big rush to say, you know what, I'm going to throw all of my money into Facebook ads and make sure that we get people looking at our stuff. But after they've bought, this is the same person who's already validated your business. They've already said, I think what you showed me is important enough that I pulled my credit card out for this. And then you just, kind of give them the silent treatment and you're looking for the next thing. So I think we gotta, step back a little bit and get away a little bit from that shiny object syndrome and really go for what works. And for me, and for my clients, that's email marketing.
Absolutely. I love that. Now, talking about your clients and talking about the business that you built with Stellar Emails, there are so many gurus out there, right? There's so many people who are in this space of helping digital entrepreneurs and e-commerce businesses succeed. What was it that made you decide to niche down specifically to email marketing as opposed to kind of taking the generalist platform of, I can, in the general consulting, right? I can help you get your e-commerce business functioning more smoothly, better communication strategies, also email marketing, and then the 4 other things we do. What made you decide email marketing was the one thing as opposed to having a company that was able to do the 7 or 8 things?
I think that's the challenge for everyone, really. I considered myself for a long time a jack of all trades, and I was really proud of being good at a lot of things. But I think, the biggest shift and the biggest decision I had to make is, whether I wanted to be great, whether I wanted to say, this is what you can rely on me for. This is what's going to get me replicable results. This isn't something that depends on, these different factors, but this is something I can, virtually guarantee that you'll see, a better return on your investment. So for me, it came down to dollars and cents. It's like, what could I produce for a company on a consistent basis where they say this is absolutely worth it, especially when they think about, not having to hire each individual piece for a good email to go out. So you're not having to hire someone who's going to do, your HTML coding. You're not having to hire someone who's going to do the strategy, who's going to do the copywriting, who's going to do the graphic design. You end up hiring my team at Stellar Emails, and you get that addition to your team as opposed to having to, go through the whole hiring process and hope that things work out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so those things you just laid out, right? Those components of building a great email strategy in and of itself. Like, I got a little bit excited listening because I'm like, I didn't even think about that. I hadn't thought about that part. I hadn't thought about that part either. Like you said earlier, a lot of us, we recognize the importance of a good email marketing campaign and strategy, but we don't do it well. So before we kind of move into the next major portion of the show, can you do me a favor and just kind of walk us through, what does a great email marketing campaign consist of? What are all the components that you would need to consider and either do yourself or hire out if you're going to have a great sustainable email marketing program for your online business?
So promotional strategy is the biggest thing, right? I've seen brands all across the web succeed, whether they have, the most awesome, visual campaigns and the best product photos. And I've seen things that just work, that people are in love with, and, it can look like it was taken on a cell phone, but because the product works so well, there's no kind of, extra incentive to really kind of change the face of how they present. So some companies have just this kind of more authentic feel. Others are just more polished and more, professional looking. So that kind of, you can knock that out. I think the biggest thing is having, relevant offers. So for me, the biggest thing that we focus on at Stellar Emails is segmentation, to say what behavior did this, customer, the subscriber exhibit, and how can we respond to them, right? If someone has, purchased from you, but then they've been, they've kind of ghosted you for the last 6 months, how do you get them back into the fold? How do you provide them with something interesting, maybe a piece of content, something that would pique their interest, maybe something that's relevant into, as far as what's going on, in pop culture right now? How do you really bring them back into the conversation? So a lot of it is really, really about behavioral segmentation. You want to make sure that you have good and relevant offers that would get somebody to actually click over and get to your site. And the next thing is about consistency of communication, right? You have to set expectations and meet them. So if you say we're gonna, sign up here and we'll email you once a week about, our latest products and new offers, do that. It's the simplest thing. It's about really keeping your promises, right? If they purchase from you, you wouldn't not ship their items. So in the same way, if they signed up to receive emails from you, send them the emails, right? And a lot of the times, especially for companies just starting out, they want everything to be perfect. But done is always better than perfect. You can always take your time and, later rebrand and do something different. But the key is to really follow up on all of your promises. And that's, the main thing that we make sure we do.
Okay. So I've got so far, having a good promotional strategy, regardless of whether it's polished or more organic, having great offers to pull people over. You talked about behavioral list segmentation. I want to go back to that real quick. Can you dig a little deeper into what that means to segment your email list?
The biggest thing is that we don't judge customers or subscribers, based on their intent, right? Someone, this is the same way that someone who says like, yeah, I'll buy that thing from you in person, and they're not, saying, I have $20 in cash to give you right now. Mm-hmm. Their intent doesn't matter to us. It's really about what they do. So we look at, from a behavioral standpoint, hey, are they opening your emails? Are they clicking your emails? Where are they clicking your emails? What stage in the email? Are they clicking very early? Are they clicking late? And then once, they get over to the website, are they adding it to cart, but then, not finishing the purchase? Are they not adding it to cart at all? Are they actually going through and buying? So you want to make sure that you have the data really to support your decisions going forward. So that's the biggest kind of evolution, especially in email marketing, is the amount of granular data that you're able to get now to say, okay, I can track this person, from the time that they open the email all the way to the time that, they place their order, and know pretty much every type of event that has gone through in between that journey. So that's really important, because once you know that, then okay, how do I respond to this person? What did they buy? Is there maybe a complementary product that I can now go ahead and upsell them or cross-sell them on something?
So you told me the other day that one of the biggest things that you want to get across to people is the value of the repeat customer, and how much less expensive it is to keep a customer than it is to get a new customer. And earlier you talked about getting away from the shiny object syndrome, but talk to us a little bit more about that. Is about that strategy of the repeat customer, the value of that to a company that really wants to grow, and then kind of how you go about remarketing to that customer through the email marketing.
Absolutely. So I think, the biggest thing is that you have your customer acquisition strategy, you have your marketing dollars set aside. But what happens is, most times when you run an ad, and you run maybe like a special promotion to kind of get them in the door, you're usually kind of, hopefully you're breaking even. Most people lose money on, acquisition of a customer. And what usually happens is it takes to about whether, based on their strategy, it takes, 2 or 3 purchases for them to actually start operating on a profit with that customer. And I think that's what's missing, that there's this big kind of push for acquisition, and you figure out, hey, well, if we get enough new customers, then eventually we'll be profitable. But you can't be profitable if you're losing money on every customer that you gain. So the goal with email marketing is to say, okay, now we have this person, they're in our funnel, and we want to keep them in that pipeline as long as possible. So what do? We're going to figure out, hey, what did they buy? What are some, other products that maybe we can upsell them or cross-sell them? How do we get them even more interested in these maybe new products? Are there product reviews that we can talk about? Is there some kind of content that can introduce them into how to use the product? So we try to use all these different avenues to make sure that we're taking this one-time, quote unquote purchase, or you purchased your customer when you set your marketing budget aside and got them into the pipeline. And once you've paid for them once, now you can essentially market to them for free anytime you want because they're on your email list. And the cost, relative for paying for, a MailChimp or a Constant Contact or a Klaviyo, relative to the amount of customers that you have is always going to be minimal. And literally you can now have this person who's in your pipeline and you can reach out to them as often as you want or as you deem acceptable or as their behavior tells you is acceptable. And that's your customer pretty much for a lifetime. And that's the benefit of it really. So instead of you running out and spending more of your marketing dollars and kind of clogging up your cash flow in that initial acquisition spend, now you have this person who is on the most part increasing their average order value the next time, and by virtue of purchasing more and more from you, they're increasing their lifetime value to your business.
Yes, absolutely. So there's this concept, the first time I ever came across this concept was about 12 years ago. I got a job working with AT&T. I was selling cell phones inside, their corporate stores or whatever. And they have a system with AT&T where you can go in and you look at the customer's account and everything. And they have ratings for customers. And like one of the ratings is churn and the other rating is revenue. And basically the way that AT&T would work is they would, when somebody would come in, I'm giving you guys a little bit of backdoor secrets. I don't work for them anymore. So,
it's all good.
Don't blame me, AT&T, but this is what y'all do. And it's a completely valid business thing, right? But a customer comes in and they've got a broken phone or they want some kind of upgrade or they want an early upgrade or whatever it is, right? You look at that person's account and if their churn, which is, late payments or low payments or, they're constantly having issues, if that churn rating is really high and then that revenue rating is really low, like they've got 3 phones, but they don't have any text messaging. They don't have internet. They don't have, right? Then that basically says this customer is costing us more money than they're worth. Don't give them anything free. And we would just tell them, it's like, you don't qualify for these things. Whereas you get a customer that comes in and their churn rating is at like 0 and their revenue rating is like at a 5 and they're coming in and saying, oh man, I broke my phone. I really need something new. You're going out of your way to get this customer whatever it is that they need, right? Give it to them free, do whatever, because that's the person that you want to keep in the pipeline because they're constantly making you more money as a business. And it sounds like that's the same type of strategy you're talking about here is businesses, large and small, online, offline, need to focus on continuously, once that customer is in the door, how are they behaving? And is their behavior making us more money? Because those are the people that we need to focus on continuing to engage and continuing to support. It kind of sounds like that same exact strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for people who've never worked in physical retail, a lot of this stuff seems kind of abstract because you've never had to interface with a customer and they just look like a subscriber on a list or a number in your monthly sales account. But the thing that we never forget is that these are real people, right? And there's something that's motivating them to choose you over another brand. So if you haven't kind of capitalized on whatever mental capital that you have in order for them to have made that purchase with you, then they're just going to go find someone else. And I think that's the thing that, we have to, again, like you said, just focus on it to make sure that, hey, we're keeping these customers happy, right? You've paid to get them. You've convinced them that, your product was the thing that they needed. And then, if you go silent, then they're of course going to look for another solution. People are constantly in search for solutions to their problems. So what you want to do is make sure that you have a bridge, that you have some kind of interface where you can constantly, be in touch with them to make sure that, things are going well, and that you always have something awesome to offer them.
Absolutely. So last question before we move into the next segment. We talked about remarketing to customers who already spent money in your business. You've already paid to acquire that customer. They've made purchases. But what about acquiring customers into your email list who haven't made a purchase? What are the best strategies for getting people to hand you their email in exchange for something of value that's not a purchase that they made?
I think that's where content comes in so handy. And you've probably been online and seen the strategy. There are travel companies that give away, a what to pack list if you're, if you have a carry on. And what the basic strategy is that you want to make sure that you have some kind of relevant tie in to the products that you sell. So instead of you, let's go for a far-flung kind of example. Let's say you sell, playing cards, and then you want to say the best places to, gamble in Vegas. Those are two kind of things that are so far apart, because it's not like they buy playing cards from you and then take them to Vegas. Exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? So there has to be something that's kind of directly related, to the product that you're offering. So that's the biggest thing. You want to look for a point of leverage. And, I think that travel example is a fantastic way to do it, where you have, hey, let's say I'm away or something like that, and I'm giving you, our list of 10 must-haves for every carry-on, that'll keep, your bag light and all this other stuff like that, so that you can do all the things that you need to do. That's perfect, because once you kind of get them in a pipeline, then we go into using email automation. This is where, from the company perspective, in the back end, we think about, hey, how did this customer get to us? If they signed up for this incentive, now how do we lead them down this path where we're sending them kind of relevant information and things that they kind of care about, and then, in order to convert them, a little lower into the funnel, right? So that's something that a lot of companies have struggle, dealing with as well, that they'll have someone that they'll come into their email list, and then again, there's no immediate communication. Mm-hmm. Let's say, they signed up for this list, they got the list, and then, mum's the word, right? There's nothing kind of going on that's saying, hey, let's kind of like explore more in this, particular category. What are these things? And then let's even show you, hey, this is what our customers think about us. These are our best sellers. These are all these things, right? And what you want to do is use so much content, give them things that are easy to consume and convincing, so that when it comes time for you to give them an offer, maybe lower into the line and say, hey, get 15% off your purchase, after they've shown that they're engaging with your emails, then it's like, okay, now it's a no-brainer, right? This is a company that's kind of, built a rapport with me, built trust, told me, who their founder is, and, why it's important that they have these team members, and kind of really personalize the experience. And once you kind of leverage a little bit of that, that kind of social capital, then, making a sale is kind of a no-brainer. It's the same way, in real life when you're networking. It's the same way that you convince someone to bump you up, a class on, at the airline if the service was poor. You have to make sure that you're in someone's face, that you're, pretty much talking them up and, convincing them of why they would be making a good decision, if they did that thing for you.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good strategy. And it's not just, I gave you this piece of content. Now I've got your email. I'm going to email you every week telling you buy this, buy this, buy this. It's, here's a really valuable piece of content. And then now you're in my email. Here's another really valuable piece and another really valuable piece. Hey, if you really want to do X, Y, or Z, here's a thing that we sell that can really help you do that. And you've already kind of gotten them to the point where they're saying, I've been waiting for you to sell me something, rather than, oh my God, why are you trying to sell me stuff?
Exactly. I think that, and that's the scary thing about retail, right? A lot of people are, averse to sales, especially when you do it online. And again, like I said, if you've never done any physical retail, if you've never had to take someone from walking into the door to the cash register, there's a huge gap, right, in just how you think about sales. And some people feel like, it's a little, icky or slimy. But the whole thing is, and what I always think about when we're creating campaigns from a strategic standpoint, it's, what's this kind of transformation at the end that you kind of alluded to? What are they now able to do by virtue of having your product that they weren't able to do or accomplish or feel before, right? And if you're not kind of articulating, what that, point, from point A to B, what that B is like, then you're never going to get them to transition from that point. So I think that's the most important thing, where it's not necessarily a sales pitch. It's more about, hey, like, these are the benefits. This is why you should. This is not like a fear tactic, or if you don't buy this product, then your life will be horrible. It's really about how can we make your life great, right? And how do we pair all of our content and our customer service and our, the way our product looks and works into making this a great experience for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that, we're going to take a quick break in the show. When we come back, Thierry is going to take us through his 3 rules for running an e-commerce business. So you guys stick with us. We'll be right back. We'll be back to finish the show after this short commercial break. So Labor Day is almost here, and I know how y'all are out there. You're trying to get a one-up on your neighbors. You're trying to make sure that your cookout is lit and everybody else's cookout is not quite such a hit. Well, let me tell you from experience, there is no better grill master secret to have in your corner than Mike D's award-winning signature sauces and dry rubs. We keep at least 3 bottles of the signature sauce and spicy sauce in our pantry at all times. The secret to Mike's success is his little twist on the traditional flavors that you find in barbecue sauce. He draws from his African American roots and his Latino roots to give you something just a little different, a little spicier, a little bit more twangy. And I'm telling you, it works on ribs, it works on beef, it works on chicken, pretty much anything that you can put Mike's sauces and rubs on, it is going to take it to the next level. Visit buyblackpodcast.com/BBQ to order your spicy and original mix set today, and use the promo code BUYBLACK, that's BUYBLACK, to get free shipping and an exclusive gift with your order. That's buyblackpodcast.com/BBQ and the promo code BUYBLACK. Now let's get back to the show. All right, guys, we are back. And as promised, Thierry is going to take us through his 3 rules for running an e-commerce business. For a lot of us, if we're just getting into the entrepreneurship game, e-commerce is a very low overhead, kind of easy in to starting your own business. You can make really high profits in a short period of time if it's done right, but you got to do it right. So I'm going to hand it back over to Thierry. Just tell us a little bit about what does it look like to run an e-commerce business right and get ourselves off the ground where we can make profits and capitalize on those repeat customers that already opened up their wallets and said, hey, I want your stuff.
Absolutely. So I think, the first thing that I always think about is that sales and marketing go hand in hand, right? There are a lot of businesses when you're kind of starting out and you're trying to figure out how you can hack this thing. But it's pretty direct, right? You have to have a marketing budget. That's something, that is just kind of non-negotiable at this point. If you want to succeed, you got to have gas in the car. So I think that's the most important thing that everyone needs to agree on. If you are jumping into e-commerce, you have to already settle it within yourself that you have to pay to play. There's kind of no way around it. The second part, like I mentioned earlier, is that customer retention is way cheaper than customer acquisition. So instead of you thinking, hey, let me just get to this point of having X amount of new customers and then I'll figure it out later, what we always advise businesses is that you have a back end already in place, something that's going to make sure that the people who have already purchased, who have already, become converts, are actively being communicated to, that there's something in the back end that's making sure that they know more about you, they know more about your brand, they know more about how to use the product, they know more about what other products work with that product, to make sure that you keep that conversation going. And the final thing is that every transaction is really an exchange in value. So stop thinking about, this is the product and this is what it does, and start thinking about why that product matters. Why should they care? And once you have a real sense of why that customer should care, then you know how to effectively market to them.
I love that. And especially the value exchange piece. When we talked before, you told me about a makeup company that you work with and kind of their strategy for turning a transaction into a value exchange. Would you mind sharing that with the audience? Because, I mean, that was really powerful for me. It helped me understand kind of what you mean by that.
So what they do, they're niche to the extreme expert level of recreating vintage makeup from decades ago. So they will go as far as finding the exact shade of something that was worn in, 1965 or 1922, and recreating that obviously up to today's, safety standards, but, an exact replica, and they built an entire experience around it, from the packaging, and the design, how you apply it and all that stuff, so that it literally transports you into that other era, right? And that's the kind of the power of it, because it's such a simple kind of concept. And people, well, let's say, it's Halloween and they go ahead and dress up, but this is everyday accessible stuff. And for the people who are, in love with, the old silent films and all these other stuff like that, they found such an active and engaged community of women who are just kind of so taken by that they'll easily spend more for that makeup brand than a comparable brand, because of that connection, because they feel that it's done just so authentically. And that's what you want to think about. The value there is this kind of like transformative, this appeal of being able to say, I feel like, an Audrey Hepburn or, a Bette Davis or some star of old, and they really kind of transport them into that experience. So even something like that, you can see how that immediately transitions, and kind of takes price out of the conversation and all of that, because they do something so well and the value is just so clearly articulated.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, that's the thing about putting a premium product out there on the market. There's nothing wrong with being a low-cost leader, but when you put a premium product on the market, people aren't really paying for your product. They're paying for how your product makes them feel. Whether that's, going to Starbucks every single day, or whether it's, your authentic makeup from a particular era. It's not about the ingredients that went into that. It's about either the status that you get from being associated with that brand, or just the way that company and that product makes you feel. I absolutely, I love that idea of looking at your transactions, look at your customers as an exchange of value, because now that puts you in a position to actually go ask them, or maybe not ask them directly, but to start paying attention to their behavior and saying, what things are we doing that get the most response? How are we kind of tapping into the way that our customers feel or want to feel, and how do we do more of that? So I love that thought process for setting up an e-commerce business. I want to roll us into your next rule of 3. You gave me the 3 secrets to email marketing success. And that's your niche. That's the thing that you and your team do. So, give us kind of those 3 secrets for email marketing success. If I wanted to go out right now today and start building my list, which I do, and using it effectively to build these connections and relationships, which I do, what are the things that I've got to do?
So the first thing is you got to think about how you sell. So for a lot of people, whether they're starting with kind of like a small product suite, they usually end up selling, one-off items, right? So for us, the most important thing is that we can build relevant offers that actually will get someone to spend more money. So we're always looking to say, how can we bundle some products together? How can we say, well, this thing goes with, that brush, and, when you put them together, you're going to save, let's say 10%, but it ends up, increasing their cart value instead of them just purchasing that one thing. So we're always thinking about relevant offers, finding ways to bundle items to make sure that we can increase their average order value each time. And not just for the sake of making more money, but literally saying, hey, this will help, enhance whatever the individual product would have done for you. So that's the first thing. The second thing we always want to think about is how do we create a kind of recurring revenue model, right? If we take a product and say, hey, if someone uses this, daily or every 2 days, how long would it take until, the product was finished? And that's where kind of automation comes in, where we can schedule something to say, let's say a product will take about a month to finish, at the 3-week mark. It says, we send out an automatic email that says, hey, it looks like you're running low on this, time to go ahead and re-up and add that, right? So whether you have that in place or you have them immediately, because you have that knowledge of the product lifecycle, you can say, hey, let's get them on this kind of automatic subscription base. And then that's a great way to start to guarantee money on a month-to-month basis, as opposed to, waiting for the sales to come in. You have people who have already agreed to say, yeah, send me this every month or every 2 months. So that's something that can go into, your kind of profit and loss column. And then the last thing is we really want to think about how to create a personalized experience, right? How do we make it feel like, we're communicating specifically to them and to their interests and to what they've done. And I think that's, again, what we talked about before is leveraging big data. How do we use how they act to now craft communication that they want to read, that they want to engage with, that they want to click, and that they want to buy from. And that's, kind of email in a sense, right? You can kind of take care of all those different things, because you're not only communicating with them consistently, but you're letting their behavior kind of dictate how you communicate. And then with that information, you're putting, relevant offers that not only, increase their average order value time over time, but if you know how your product functions and works, then you can get them to a point where they're like, yeah, just sign me up and send this to me automatically. And on the back end of that, even being able to use email to call things like, reviews and referrals. Now you have this one customer who you paid for once, who've now made, 3-4 orders. And now they're saying, well, if I tell my friend and they shop, with this link or whatever, then they can go ahead and get money back toward the next purchase that they're going to make. So they just keep spending more. And as a company, you keep making more.
Wow. I love that. And, the thing that keeps hitting me here as we talk, we talked the other day and you completely opened my eyeballs on things that I could be doing better. But also the sheer volume of considerations that go into a great email marketing strategy. You have a company that does all these things for your clients. It takes that huge, headache and heartache and kind of learning curve and just kind of outsources it and hands it over to you. So if you don't mind, take a few minutes and just kind of talk to us about Stellar Emails and kind of how you guys function and how you do all of this for your clients and how that could benefit folks who might be in the audience who are running an e-commerce business themselves right now.
Absolutely. And I think you said it perfectly, literally just outsourcing the learning curve. What happens a lot is that when companies are new, you don't have a lot of salary to kind of throw around. So you're willing to get like an intern or maybe like a recent graduate. You pay them this amount, but then you have to go back in and, pay for training and hope that they kind of get it, as they move along and hope that they get better. We saw that obviously as a big problem. So we said, hey, you know what? I can get together. I, had from my, early consulting business, had people who were designers and coders. I'm like, how do I, I'll reach out to these people, get them on payroll. And then now we have a team that will do the complete intake, right? We'll figure out, hey, what have you been doing in the past? Have you been doing any email marketing? What are your sales goals? What sales have you done? And then use that to kind of formulate a forward strategy. And that includes, relatively quick onboarding process where right about 3 days or so where by the end of that 72-hour period, you'll have, the design templates, what your email would look like. You'll have a promotional calendar that we make, based on, what products you have and what things have been selling. And literally, we just completely do the email and the optimizing for you. So we figure out, hey, what's the best time to send? What's the best kind of subject line to use? And the best part is that it's completely commitment free. So we do it on a month-to-month contract. We're good at, retaining our clients because they continue not wanting the headache after they've kind of been exposed to what the service offers. And that way it's like, hey, it's completely month to month for people who are starting. And then we end up, graduating our clients into, a year-long kind of contract. And that way they get this whole thing kind of taken care of for them.
Love that. And so talk to us about the value of that. What is the monthly cost to hire your team? And then also, because I know the answer to this and I know how it's going to make some people in the audience jump, but go right into how that cost turns into a value exchange for your customers within a short period of time, because I think that's the big part of this whole thing, that we as folks moving into the world of entrepreneurship and business ownership, we need to start thinking bigger, and taking the caps off of our minds of what is both possible and valuable.
Absolutely. I think, as a business owner in general, you have to immediately learn, the power of delegation, right? How do you kind of outsource something that you're not good at or great at to someone who is, and allow that thing to be profitable on its own. So we start for as low as $1,000 a month. And that's compared to paying anywhere from $80,000 to maybe $150,000 to bring in the people who would actually do it for you, individual people. Those are individual salaries based on what I used to do for as my 9 to 5. So that's where you always want to think about kind of like, what's this cost exchange? And so when I reached out to you, I showed you kind of mini case study of how we made one of our clients over $150,000 in less than 30 days, and they literally only paid us $1,000 to do that. So when you think about that level of exchange and that type of multiple in revenue that you get for paying that one-time fee, and that was only across 8 emails. So that's, for them, they ended up doing 2 emails a week, and that's for our initial connect and nurture package at $1,000 a month, and across 8 emails we made them $154,788.93
in 30 days.
In 30 days.
That's the value, man. That's the value of having experts just come in and do this type of remarketing like that. I think more than anything else, that goes to the value of remarketing to your existing customers versus going out and getting new customers. I mean, you said it before, how much more expensive it is to market and get new people in. Marketing and sales going hand in hand. So you have to spend that money marketing up front to get that customer in there for those initial sales. But then when you bring in a team like Stellar Emails, and they can go in and they can remarket for a very, very low comparative cost to those folks who've already spent money, the amount of money that you're going to make on the back end of that is incredible. It's just amazing to me. And I love the concept. And I also love how you're able to identify, or not really identify, but demonstrate that whole thing that we say about, there's riches and niches. We all have a hard time saying, well, I'm going to miss all these customers if I niche down and I only do this one thing. But when you become the expert at doing the one thing, and you do it better than anybody else, and you can make people more money than anybody else could, they will pay you your worth, and you're definitely giving them back that value. So I love the story of that, but then I also love the fact that, it's just kind of a matter of fact thing for you. Your business, that's what you exist to do. You exist to make other people a whole bunch of money. So hire Stellar Emails.
Yeah, that says it right. I think for me, the biggest kind of impetus for starting this business was to see, so many brands, owners that I knew personally, and just from kind of reading reports across the web and things like that. And it's just like, brands are struggling, right, to stay alive, right? They're struggling, and instead of really kind of thriving in the markets and with the products that they spend so much time and energy really creating for people. So I think one of the biggest causes of that is that they're not focusing and implementing a retention strategy. So I know what it's like from that business owner side of having to think about all that stuff too. So for me, it's like, how do we create a reliable system that generates money and even gets them an immediate return on their investment within the first week? So I think that's where we found, our kind of golden nugget, and we're just continuing to mine for more.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, man, let's go ahead and roll into the final segment of this show. I've got a few more personal questions for you. And the first one I just want to ask, what is the biggest challenge that you have ever faced, and how did you overcome it, and or what did you learn from it?
So I think my biggest one is, the one I alluded to earlier about just knowing the importance of delegation. I started the business just kind of on my own, literally, to validate it, to see if whether, I would be able to take on and keep a client. And so I had to, have my crash course in coding and design and things like that. And my wife, who's also an e-commerce entrepreneur, and she owns several businesses, she's looking at me stressing out. And at this point, we've had our son, and I'm trying to balance all these different things and kind of going crazy. And she's like, you can get somebody else to do this. Like, you're making money so that you can pay other people so that they can make you more money as a business. And I was like, the same thing that I'm pitching to these brands about, hey, like, if you pay us, then we'll do it and you don't have to worry about it, is the same thing that I knew that I needed as well. So I think, being able to, admit when you need help and then going out and getting that help, I think it's super important.
All right. Well, thank you for convicting me. That was perfect. But no, you're 100% right. I'm getting to that point where I'm starting to take my own advice too. But you were absolutely right. That's the hardest thing, is to go from being that jack of all trades, because that's always been the thing that kind of defines, a person like you, a person like me, and then realizing like, well, I can hire somebody else to do these things, and I can focus on building this skill set of a CEO. That's a whole new thing. And I think that it becomes way more valuable over time to have the skill set of managing people and giving strategy and then having people execute that than being the person who can do all the things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I've moved into the role now of head of strategy. So, we'll talk about the initial intake. I'll see kind of what assets we have to work with. I'll put forward my vision, and then I have a team that can go ahead and execute it. So it feels better. It's a little scary, which I'm sure you can be familiar with. But I think once you get to that point of saying I don't get through life without trusting people anyway, then I can go ahead and allow this to happen and allow it to grow me and then further grow my business.
Indeed. So the next question I have for you is tools. I implemented a new segment in the show a little while back talking about the tools that we use to buy us more time. A lot of us, we are still in the pre-monetization or early monetization phase, and we may be solo entrepreneurs or small team entrepreneurs, but there are tools and technology out there that can buy us back time for either free or cheap. What are some of the tools that you use for yourself or for your team that really help you get your business done?
Yeah, I remember when we spoke about this a little earlier, I forgot to mention the most important and cheapest one is a notebook and a pen. I'm a big idea guy, and what happens is they come, and then if I don't write them down, I lose them. So I think for everyone, regardless of where you are in business, whether you're just kind of approaching it, thinking about it, or you've already launched and you're kind of in the thick of things, please do yourself a favor, carry a notebook. There's so much wisdom and inspiration as you literally just kind of walk around the world, that you can download something, but then completely miss how you can apply it to your business because you didn't kind of write down the whole situation. So, I think that's the first and most important tool. And the second one from a management standpoint is, my team tool, Asana. So we use that so that everyone is kind of aware of their different roles and kind of, what this client expectations are, where this client is in the funnel. So we can know, hey, like, did we, give this person all of their email templates? Did they approve the copywriting? Did they approve, how we did the graphic design? And then it kind of lets us check our boxes to make sure that, everyone's on the same page, and it limits the amount of calls, that we have to take, and the amount of emails that we have to send, between us and the brand, and keeps us looking, super professional and great, and then keeps them, their time free and focused on the things that they need to focus on so that we can do our job.
Awesome. So next question, what is coming up next for you? What do you got going on soon? What can our audience do to support you, to help you out, or to hire you if we have an e-commerce business that really can do a lot better job of reconnecting with our existing email list?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, StellaEmails.com, you can start for as low as $1,000 a month. And that's our Connect and Nurture package where we, create, send, optimize 1 to 2 emails every week on your behalf for a month. Again, try it. You will love it. But, if you don't, you can continue to move on. So that's, the thing that we make it super easy. That is just, completely no commitment. The second thing is that I created an online course called Inbox to Income, which really gives you a great foundation in email marketing for e-commerce. It's something, that was really important for me to do, knowing, that, not everyone, starts off with their business budget, or maybe they're starting off with a smaller budget, or maybe they're just like self-starters who want to learn everything as well, and know a little bit about each piece of their business, before they go ahead and start hiring out. So that's, of course, that's online at, my name, ThierryAugustin.podia, PODIA.com. And that's Inbox to Income. It's normally $347. But we're giving a discount to all, buyback podcast listeners, and you get $50 off. So that's $297 for the course, and it's completely video based. And it'll take you through some kind of key worksheets to help you understand how to build an email campaign strategy, and all the facets that go into it. So that's a great way if you are a self-starter and you can learn on your own. It's a great thing to take advantage of. And, I'm always open, for questions. You can find me on Twitter. It's at @TAugustin_. If you have any particular business questions or questions specifically centering around email marketing, I'd love to address them for you. And, lastly, the next big thing for me, we're just kind of doing more, speaking engagements. I'm finally getting myself, out from behind the computer, and off of the phone, and, gone ahead and touch some real people and see who I can help, at, some of the local, places around New York.
Very, very exciting. Very exciting. Well, congratulations on that, and good luck as you get started. Those of you out in the audience listening, that Inbox to Income online course, the discount code you would use for that is BuyBlack2018. That is BuyBlack2018 will get you $50 off of the Inbox to Income online course. The final question I have for you, Thierry, same question that I ask everyone who comes on the Buy Black podcast. What is your number one piece of advice to the listening community as a whole?
Get started. I know that's kind of like cliche, and we kind of understand all the fears that kind of go into launching something, and, all the extra thinking that you have to do. But there's just this power in getting started and adjusting, right? And I think that's the thing. We understand that even with the perfect plan, perfect plans fail, especially if, your particular customer, whoever, whatever segment you're serving, doesn't react to it in the way that you thought they would. So there's always going to be a bit of adjustment anyway. So I think, you'd be doing yourself a disservice in, waiting, for 2 more years or trying to find something else to validate why you should get started instead of just kind of go ahead and jumping into it, right? And, there's the things that you should do, right? I always think about when you are starting a business, you should have, some money saved anywhere from, 6 to 12 months of, your expenses kind of put away to make sure that you can personally float the things that you're responsible for. But, once you have, something there and and you're confident in your idea and you've spoken to the real people who that idea will serve, and you kind of gotten some of that good feedback, man, just go ahead and dive in. It's 2018, the water's fine. And we've just been so empowered by, everything that's available online, even something like this podcast, that you have actionable advice and things that you should do. And I think that's all it's requiring now is that you take the advice and you do the actions, and you'll see that you're going to be in a way better spot this time next year, than you would be this time next year if you've not done anything.
So true. Even looking at that advice for me, it was just over a year ago that I launched this podcast, and a testament. My world is in a completely different place. My relationships are in a completely different place right now than they possibly could have been if I just had the idea for this show and never wrote it down on my notebook and took action on it. That is perfect. Well, Thierry, thank you so much. Thanks for reaching out in the first place. Thank you for everything that you shared on this show. I know it is a lot of value that you brought to us, e-commerce entrepreneurs out here. And I definitely encourage you folks out in the audience, if you have an e-commerce business, you're already building up a list of customers and you're not using that, reach out to Thierry, hire stellar emails, and watch your income continue to grow. And if you don't feel like you're there yet, go ahead and get the Inbox to Income online course with that $50 off code, BuyBlack2018, but get started. Thierry, thank you so much. And folks out there in the audience, we will catch you in the next episode. We're out. Want to show your support for Buy Black Podcast? Become a patron and get exclusive access to behind-the-scenes content and a shout-out in our new question and answer monthly episode. Make your first donation by visiting patreon.com/buyblackpodcast and send your questions for the show to questions@buyblackpodcast.com. Talk to you soon.